Part 1. The calm before the storm. It was a normal night, the kind that should have felt safe. I remember walking through the house, picking up stray things, locking the doors, just another routine night. The clock ticked away in the background, the kind of sound that makes you feel like time is moving too fast. The house, though small, was cozy. A 2-bedroom bungalow with creaky floors and old wallpaper that seemed to tell stories of its own. I liked it that way. It was mine. The night was quiet. Too quiet, maybe. I brushed it off. There was nothing to be worried about, right? I was just getting ready for bed, brushing my teeth, running through the motions. Everything felt normal, except for that nagging feeling, like there was something in the room with me. I wasn't scared. Not exactly, but something in the air felt different. As I walked past the bathroom mirror, I caught a glimpse of something. A shadow. At first, I thought it was just my reflection, wrong angle, bad lighting, nothing to make a fuss about. But then, something inside me clicked. I felt it. The sudden chill that crawled up my spine. The hairs on the back of my neck stood up, and the shadow didn't seem to match my movements. I stood still, my breath shallow. The reflection in the mirror was off. It wasn't that it was distorted, but it wasn't me. The person staring back from the mirror looked like me, but something was wrong. It wasn't exactly fear, more like an intense curiosity mixed with dread. And for the first time, I wasn't sure if it was me in that mirror at all. Part 2. Unseen Forces. At first, I brushed it off. I had a long day. Maybe it was just exhaustion. But as the days went on, I started to notice more things. Small things. Like how the temperature in certain rooms would drop out of nowhere, or how the furniture would be just slightly shifted in the morning, like someone had been in the house without me knowing. And every time I passed a mirror, I would see it again. That shadow, at the edges of the glass, just out of focus. It was subtle, but there. I could no longer ignore it. One evening after work, I stood in front of the mirror for a long time. The house was silent, the only sound my own breathing. I studied my reflection. I don't know what I expected, but the longer I stared, the more uncomfortable I became. The longer I looked, the more I felt watched. It was like the reflection was waiting for me to move, to do something, as if it were a separate entity mocking my every move. And then it happened again. As I turned my head to the side, I saw it. Just for a split second, a shadow that wasn't mine, lurking just beyond the reflection. It wasn't the light playing tricks. It was deliberate. I couldn't explain it. My heart raced as the shadow seemed to stretch just beyond the frame, like it was trying to reach for me, pulling me into the mirror. I backed away, my pulse hammering in my chest, but the reflection didn't change. I was still standing there looking at myself, but the feeling didn't go away. It lingered. Something was wrong. Part 3. The descent into panic days passed. I tried to shake it off, but it wasn't just the mirrors anymore. The strange feeling followed me wherever I went in the house. A constant, gnawing presence. At night, the air would get colder in certain rooms. I'd hear noises, soft scraping sounds from behind walls, footsteps when I was alone. And every time I turned a corner, I'd expect to see something or someone there. But there was never anyone. It all came to a head one night, a night I'll never forget. I was in bed, trying to sleep, but the noise kept me awake, scratching, tapping, like something was trying to get inside. I couldn't ignore it anymore. I got up, heart pounding, and slowly walked down the hallway. The darkness in the house seemed thicker than usual, more suffocating. I reached the bathroom and froze. The door was slightly ajar, the same as it always was, but I felt the pull, that strange energy drawing me in. I stepped inside, and there it was, the mirror. It seemed to hum with some unseen force, like it was alive. And there, staring back at me, was not me. I could see myself, but in the reflection, my face was distorted, twisted, almost in pain. And behind me, standing just out of frame, was the shadow. It had no form, no shape, just a dark, inky blur that filled the space. I didn't know what to do. I couldn't move. I couldn't scream. The shadow seemed to reach out like it was about to pull me in. And then, in an instant, everything went black. When I woke up, it was morning. I was still standing in front of the mirror. My heart was racing, my body cold with sweat, but the house was quiet again. The shadows were gone. Everything seemed normal, but I knew better. I couldn't go back to the house. I couldn't live with that presence lingering around. I moved out the very next day, and to this day, I can't shake the feeling that the house is still waiting for me. The shadow is still there, watching, waiting. Part 1. An ordinary evening. I wasn't expecting anything out of the ordinary that evening. It was just a typical Thursday night, nothing special. I was running low on groceries, so I decided to swing by the local convenience store. The kind of place you go to for quick essentials, milk, eggs, maybe a bag of chips for later. It was around 8 p.m, and the store was quiet, the fluorescent lights buzzing softly overhead. The clerk behind the counter gave me a half smile, the same one I'd seen 100 times. It was one of those small towns where everyone recognized each other. There were only a few customers in the store, their faces familiar but not memorable. Everything felt routine, almost too normal. I grabbed what I needed and stood in line. As I waited to check out, I noticed a man standing near the back of the store, his face obscured by the shelves of canned goods. He seemed out of place. I couldn't quite put my finger on it, but there was something about the way he stood, frozen, as if waiting for something. His stillness was too deliberate. It made me uncomfortable. When I looked away for a moment, then glanced back, the man was gone. I didn't hear the door open, no sign of movement. He had vanished. 1 second he was there, the next, nothing. I told myself it was nothing. Maybe he just moved to another aisle or left the store when I wasn't looking. But that didn't sit right with me. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. I hurried to the counter, paid for my things, and tried to leave the store as quickly as possible. Part 2. The stranger returns. I drove home, my mind wandering, but I couldn't shake the thought of the man. Who was he? Why had he stood there, motionless, for so long? It was just off. The kind of thing that gnaws at you long after you've moved on from it. I tried to distract myself, throwing on a podcast to calm my nerves, but the feeling of unease followed me all the way to my front door. I stepped inside and put the groceries on the kitchen counter. As I did, I glanced out the window to the parking lot across the street. That's when I saw him again, the same man. He was standing there, staring directly at my house. He was too far away to see his face clearly, but I could tell he was watching. I felt a tight knot in my stomach. There was no way this could be a coincidence. But how had he gotten here? Had he followed me home? My mind raced with possibilities, none of which made any sense. He couldn't have. The parking lot was a good distance away from the store, and there was no way he could have gotten here that fast. I stepped back from the window, heart hammering in my chest. It was getting late, and I tried to rationalize it. Maybe he was just some random person walking through the neighborhood, or maybe he was waiting for someone. But the more I tried to explain it, the more unsettled I felt. I drew the curtains, locking the windows, and went to bed. But sleep didn't come easy that night. Every creak of the house, every rustling outside made me jump. I kept thinking I'd hear a knock at the door, but it never came. Part 3, the pursuit. The next morning, I figured it was just a weird experience, one of those things that happens when your mind plays tricks on you. I went to work, tried to focus on the day, and hoped I wouldn't see the stranger again. But the following evening, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. The memory of the man standing across the street haunted me, and no matter how many times I tried to brush it off, the nagging feeling wouldn't leave. I didn't want to seem paranoid, but I couldn't help myself. After dinner, I decided to take a walk. I figured if I could just clear my head, I'd stop thinking about the man. So, I put on my jacket and stepped outside, the crisp air hitting my face as I walked through the empty streets. It was peaceful, almost too quiet. But the moment I passed the end of my block, I saw something that made my heart stop. The man. He was there again, standing across the street a few yards ahead, but this time he wasn't looking at my house. He was looking directly at me. He didn't move, just stared with intensity, and I felt the cold weight of his gaze on me like a physical force. I couldn't move. I just stood there, frozen. I didn't know why, but suddenly I felt an overwhelming urge to confront him, to ask him who he was, what he wanted. So I walked toward him, but when I was halfway across the street, he turned and walked into the alley, disappearing into the shadows. I stopped. Something told me I shouldn't follow him, but my curiosity got the better of me. I walked down the alley, but when I turned the corner, he was gone. Vanished. I searched the alley, my heart pounding, but there was no trace of him. No sign he had ever been there at all. It was as if the man had melted into the night. That was the last time I saw him, but I can't shake the feeling that he's still out there, still watching. The fear hasn't left me. And every time I leave the house, I can't help but look over my shoulder wondering, is he there? Will I ever truly be free of him? Part 1. A new start. I'd spent months searching for the perfect place. An apartment that was quiet, isolated, a space I could truly make my own. After living in noisy, overcrowded places for so long, the idea of having a little peace and solitude was a dream. When I found the old building on the outskirts of town, it was perfect. The price was reasonable, the location just far enough from the bustle to feel like an escape. It was a fixer-upper. Yes, but that was part of the charm. The worn floors, the drafty windows, the peeling wallpaper, it had history. And the rent was cheap. The landlord, an older man with tired eyes, gave me the keys in a quick rundown. The place has its quirks, he said with a shrug, but it's solid. You'll get used to it. He mentioned one detail, though. There's a door at the end of the hall. Don't worry about it. It's locked. The last tenants never went near it. I didn't think much of it at the time. I was too focused on getting settled in, filling the space with my things and making it feel like home. The first few days passed without incident. The apartment was everything I needed, quiet, peaceful, and isolated. But that door, that locked door at the end of the hall, it was always there, always catching my eye. I couldn't help it. I wasn't a curious person by nature, but something about that door nagged at me. Why was it locked? What was behind it? I tried to brush off the thought. It was just a door, right? But every time I walked past it, I felt a strange unease. Part 2. Unsettling noises. Over the next few weeks, the noises started. At first, they were subtle. Just a faint tapping sound, like something small was knocking against the walls. I couldn't place where it was coming from, but it always seemed to echo from the direction of that locked door. I'd sit in the living room, trying to concentrate on a book or a show, and there it would be. A soft scratching noise. Just enough to make me glance over my shoulder to look down the hall. The tapping would come and go, but the feeling it left behind lingered. I tried to ignore it, thinking it was just the old building settling, maybe the pipes or the wind. But the longer I stayed there, the more the sounds grew. At night, it got worse. There were times I would wake up in the middle of the night to hear scratching. Scratching that seemed to come from behind the locked door. It was as if something or someone was trying to get out. The noises were so persistent, I started to question my sanity. I told myself I was just imagining things, that my mind was playing tricks on me. But deep down, I knew something wasn't right. One night, I couldn't take it anymore. I got up, heart pounding in my chest, and walked toward the door. The apartment was dark, save for the faint light from the street lamps outside, casting long shadows down the hallway. The air felt heavy, like something was pressing in on me. I reached the door. It stood there, silent, waiting. But I could hear it now, the faint scratching sound, as if something was trying to get through from the other side. My fingers hovered over the doorknob, but I couldn't bring myself to turn it. The lock was old and rusted, but still I knew better than to open it. There was something behind it. I was sure of it, but I didn't know what. I backed away slowly, a chill running down my spine. But that night, I couldn't sleep. I stayed awake, listening to the silence, waiting for the sound to return. Part 3. The revelation days passed, and the noises only grew more frequent. The tapping turned into scratching, then to something worse, like nails dragging across wood. A sound so sharp it sent shivers through me. I tried everything to ignore it, blasting music, watching TV, even going out of the apartment for hours. But no matter where I went, when I returned, the sound was there, waiting for me. I started to lose sleep. I couldn't focus at work. The fear was gnawing at me, slowly breaking me down. There was no way I could stay in that apartment any longer. But something stopped me from leaving. It was that damn door. I had to know what was behind it. So I decided to open it. I went out the next day and bought a new lockpick set, something I'd never imagined I'd use. The door was stubborn, old and heavy, but after what felt like an eternity, I managed to unlock it. The door creaked open slowly, a sound that echoed in the stillness of the hallway. As the door swung wide, I saw nothing. The room behind the door was dark, empty, but there was something strange about it. The air in the room was thick, musty, as though it hadn't been touched in years. The walls were covered in mildew, and the floor was littered with debris. But the worst part? The walls were scratched. Deep gouges ran across the paint. The plus something, or someone, had been clawing at them for years. I stepped inside, my heart pounding in my chest. And then I saw it, a small wooden chest, shoved into the far corner of the room, almost hidden by the darkness. I couldn't explain why, but I knew I had to open it. Something inside me compelled me to. I walked over to the chest, my hands trembling as I lifted the lid. Inside was nothing but dust. But at the very bottom, I saw something glinting in the dim light, a small silver key. I didn't know what it was for, but I felt an overwhelming urge to take it. I grabbed the key, and as soon as my fingers closed around it, I felt something shift in the air. The temperature dropped, and the scratching sounds, louder now, seemed to come from all around me. I turned quickly, heart hammering, but the room was empty. There was no one there. I left that night, never to return. The building still stands, and I've heard rumors that the apartment has been rented out again. But every time I walk past it, I can't help but wonder, what if I opened the wrong door? What if the chest was meant to stay locked? And what was that key for? The stories we've shared tonight, they all have one thing in common. The feeling that there is something just out of sight, something we can't quite grasp, but that continues to tug at us. It's unsettling, isn't it? To think that there are things in this world that defy explanation, things that leave us questioning our own senses. But maybe that's the most terrifying part, that we're never truly sure if we're the ones in control or if something else is pulling the strings. We tell ourselves that we're safe, that our homes are secure. But the truth is, sometimes the things we can't explain are the most dangerous of all. The shadows that flicker just outside our vision, the strangers who follow us without reason, the doors that remain locked, hiding secrets we may not want to know. So as you drift off to sleep tonight, remember this. There are things in this world, things that can't be explained, and they might just be waiting for you too. Maybe they'll stay in the dark, hidden, just out of reach. Or maybe one day they'll step into the light. Stay alert and stay safe. End of script. Sleep well.